Yeah, good morning, everybody. Eddie Short. I lead data and analytics for KPMG. Probably talk for about 10 minutes and then give 5 minutes for questions. Funnily enough, working for KPMG, I'm not an accountant. I started life as an engineer. I've described myself most of my career as an I of IT guy. So I'm an IT guy, but the problem with most IT is it's T, not I. Most of my focus has been wrestling that challenge over the last 20 years to the ground. So I've worked as a management consultant. I've worked in big systems integration. I've also was the CTO for British American Tobacco. So I've also been in Mobil Oil. So I've worked in different industries in an end user environment and in a system integration environment and in a consulting environment. So hopefully I can give you different perspectives on this challenge. And I don't think you wouldn't be here if you didn't realize that big data is important. I think for me there's a kind of a yin and yang between data and analytics, because actually it's there is a lot about having the data, but actually it's what you do with it in terms of analytics. And for a number of years what I did was called business intelligence, and then we actually called it enterprise information management, because we brought together structured and unstructured data. And now to build on the comment from Max, then there's a huge amount of data to tap into that's outside of your firewall. And I think new challenges that creates, because we spent an awful lot of time getting control of the data within our firewalls, only doing half a decent job of doing that, and now we can tap into a huge amount of data that's uncontrolled or out of our control, and how do we actually leverage that? Equally, when people talk about analytics, and for me that's a lot of where the value is, and that's what this is about. It's really not so much having the data, but what you do with it to get value. They want to know about diagnostics, they want to know about descriptive. They think that's kind of what we got from MI and reports in terms of data warehousing and business intelligence. Increasingly now you hear in the context of big data, what can you do in terms of prescription and prediction? Can you tell me what's going to happen, and what should I do in terms of with all this data? All that tells you that it's important, but equally I think the evidence also dictates that people are pretty overwhelmed by the data they have got. And whilst the most effective organisations seem to be quite analytical, very few of them are analytical. So there's a huge amount of opportunity. This is our point of view, and really on the left-hand side what you can see is all of the issues that are actually driving public and private organisations. What we've seen over the last 10 or 15 years, and particularly in the last 5 years, in terms of financial paralysis, static economy, a massive rise in regulation, a massive rise in terms of public engagement through social media, a huge focus on real time. Can we get answers? We want immediate satisfaction, we want immediate results. All that's driving lots and lots of demands for data. People are really focused on growth, risk and cost. Everything you hear about banks, they've been actually, I'm not a banker, but actually the banks are probably some of the most successful companies we have. We've been actually haranguing them for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. We're actually tying them down with huge amounts of regulation, and people wonder why our economy is flatlining, because we're not actually getting the investment out. That's actually the consequence of all this big data. Is economically we don't actually know what we should be doing, and corporately we struggle to know what we should be doing, and personally we struggle with what we're doing. When you've heard about big data for the last 12 months, you've heard about, it's all about 3 V's. Volume, there's loads of it. Variety, it's in all different formats, and velocity, the speed of it. For me, that's all an illusion. We've been dealing with those kind of challenges for 10 years. Yes, there's a lot more of it, and yes, people want immediate satisfaction. But all that really means is you want to throw more technology at it. And actually, yes, there is a technology dimension to this, but actually that's the least of the problem. And it's also the least of the opportunity. when you want to get to real leverage of big data, you need to think about, in all that sea of data, what is the data that's relevant to me? What's relevant to my organization? And what influence and how confident am I on it? So we talk about veracity, How confident am I in the data? Where's it come from? Where's it been sourced? Have I got any governance over it? We put a lot of effort into governance of data inside our organization, but bringing the data from outside, how confident are we? How uncertain are we about it? And I think equally in this world of big data and instant decisions, there is no right answer. There's one definitively wrong answer, and that's the do nothing scenario. Actually, what you should be doing is starting to build up scenarios and options in your business, in your organization, because actually you're going to be constantly responding to data and information, using analytics to drive your business forward, or your corporate and organization forward. And that takes us to the other one. People wax lyrically about value. Usually they mean cost. When we're talking about systems and what we've done over the last 20 years, we've done huge amounts to automate processes. We've done almost nothing to support executives in actually driving their businesses forward, or whether that's in the public or private sector. Decision-making organizations. I ask a lot of my CFO clients and see how many processes do you follow? 0, 1. Yeah. We've done a great job at automating stuff down in the weeds. We've done nothing for our real decision makers. And actually, all this data gives you massive opportunities in terms of where are your biggest growth opportunities, where are your major risk opportunities, and where are your cost opportunities. I know we've got a very different kind of audience today, so I'm going to talk about really 3 different organizational scenarios to give you my view of where some of the real value opportunities are. So, as an example, we think big data in a utility. Yeah, we're all customers of utilities, Centrica, Scottish and Southern, RWE, npower. How many of us are happy with our bills? Did you know that right now, at least 30 to 40% of all bills are estimated, and that's probably an underestimate, but 70% of those are challenged. So actually most of our utilities have got a billing and debt management problem. I mean, they're clearly not short of profit, but actually they don't know where their biggest issues are. They're not in control of their data, and suddenly when they're dealing with tens of millions of customers, as they are, they actually have little control over the experience they're delivering, the management of their operating model, the management of their people, because they have hundreds of thousands of people out serving us every day, whether that's reading our meter, coming to look at our utility problems. Their customer experience, I think most of us say, is somewhere between poor and worse. They're actually being regulated to death. They can't see line of sight in terms of regulation. Most of them, and this is not an anti-SAP campaign, but most of them actually run SAP, as do most big corporates, to actually run their processes, but they're not joined up. They don't have line of sight to the data. Their data is not driving their decisions, and now they've got lots more data. So we see a huge amount of opportunity for them in terms of joining up data and actually that driving their business and actually having analytics to answer questions from that data to be better customer service, better optimization of their workforce, better optimization of their operating model. Right now, they know, believe it or not, that they have got a massive issue with poor customer service, but they also know they've got a massive issue with regulation. They've got a massive issue with mis-selling, as we've all known. Many of you have switched utility providers in the past few years. For them, better control of data is about better serving us as customers, leveraging what they already know, which is a lot, but effectively then bringing in external sources of data to actually improve their operating model and actually show to themselves which are the really poor services that they're delivering and then optimize them effectively. David Cameron and George Osborne haven't necessarily helped them or us by saying they'll be forced to deliver the lowest tariffs. Actually, they're limiting the options, but right now, these guys need to get better control of their data to deliver better services. Healthcare. I'm not a doctor, but most of you are probably aware that the biggest problem that we have right now out there is that we're all self-diagnosing through the internet, We all want antibiotics, even when most of our ailments don't actually require antibiotics. In fact, they definitely don't require antibiotics, and therefore we've developed antibiotic resistance. But the main problem that doctors have is that most sick people, unfortunately, don't have one condition. They actually have multiple conditions. And what we found by looking at the data is actually multimorbidity, as it's termed. When we try traditionally to diagnose symptoms and identify one ailment, we go with one course of treatment. What doctors need and what the healthcare system needs is much better line of sight to understanding all the data and say, really, what are the pitfalls? How can we actually get to more effective treatment, not just for populations, but for people? There are lots of opportunities for drug companies who, as many of you know, spent a lot of time doing lots and lots of trials, but actually then with very, very low success rates. And part of that because it's they're looking at one ailment when actually a lot of the people they're treating have got multiple ailments. There's a classic here pyramid of going from collecting data, retrieving data, knowledge generation, and insights. All that data you can look at to actually give you better insights. In the treatment of cancer, for example, there are 12 symptoms, 12 identifiable symptoms out there that doctors use to identify what your symptoms are. Using big data, and a plug for IBM with their Watson technology, you might have heard of that. They used that. They didn't give Watson any of the rules that people use, but it identified those 12 rules and 3 other rules, which have suddenly given cancer doctors huge amounts of additional information about where symptoms are caused and what opportunities are caused. Just something else to just touch on in terms of healthcare. The real value is about looking at where the opportunities are to actually treat populations, individuals. But there's also a degree of certainty. If you're a drug provider, it's great to be able to say you've got a 90% confidence that this drug is going to treat people more effectively. The downside is that you're going to be confident that there are 10% of people who will be impacted or, in worst case, killed by that drug. And we're in a society today where the downsides are often over-treated in excess to the upside. So balancing better information and actually being confident that these people are going to be better off, but these people definitely are going to be worse impacted, is one of those societal problems we have to deal with. And big data is exposing that opportunity and that threat. Going back to our favourite badger baiting community, the banks. You may or may not be aware that the Bank of England is taking on much more responsibility for regulating banks, and the Financial Services Authority is being disbanded, being replaced by a subset of that, the Financial Conduct Authority. Banks have spent an awful lot of time looking at their market risk, their credit risk, all the regulation they're facing in terms of solvency, Basel, payment protection, insurance issues. At the heart of the challenge of many banks today is their systems and processes are now so complicated that they don't have the information to know what they're selling to whom. They are therefore at the challenge of being effectively not in conduct, but actually it's just poor customer service. That comes back to the heart of actually all of their systems being process and product-centric and not being able to give a holistic view of data. And what we believe there's a massive opportunity in this world of big data and the technologies and the opportunities around it for them to truly get a know your customer experience. Those who've been IT for CRM, it's been something we've been talking about for 20 years or more. There is a huge amount of opportunity for the banks. They're going to be regulated around this space. But for me, I think the kind of key legacy and what kind of message I'd leave behind for you is, with data and big data, there's a real opportunity that risk and performance are two sides of the same data coin. So when you're looking at your regulation issues, when you're looking at your legal issues and your compliance issues, that same data, if you look at it properly to actually meet that regulatory trend, you can actually use it to know your customer, know your business more effectively. In the past, we treated them in individual silos. The risk guys over here had completely separate systems to the CRM guys over here, and for good reasons. in the future, we need to bring this together, have an architecture, an organization, and a capability, and genuinely we can actually leverage this to actually look at those opportunities. I've got more slides, but I think that's actually covered the key messages that I wanted to land with you, which is, really the technology's out there, there's a huge amount of data, but look at the risks, the controls, the veracity, look at where it actually is going to help you with your growth and your performance, the value, and actually at the heart of that is it's the same data, two sides of the same data.